The evening sun sank behind the crimson mesas, bathing the desert in golden sorrow. Eli McGraw tightened the saddle strap on his mare, his heart heavy with the kind of silence only widowed men carry. He thought the world had forgotten him, until he heard a voice, soft yet strong, say his name. When he turned, he saw her standing by the corral fence, tall and proud, her dark hair loose in the wind. The giant Apache sister had returned. Her name was Nyana. Years ago, she had saved his life during a raid, taking an arrow meant for him. He remembered her bravery, the fire in her eyes. Now, that fire was dimmed, replaced by something broken. When she finally spoke, her voice trembled like the desert wind before a storm. I haven't felt love in 6 months, Eli. The words struck him harder than any bullet. It wasn't a confession, it was a cry for life. Eli stepped closer, his voice quiet. What happened, Nyana? She looked toward the horizon, the fading light painting her face in sadness. My brother, he's gone. The white soldiers called him a rebel. They didn't let me near him, not even to say goodbye. Her voice cracked, but her eyes stayed fierce, refusing pity. Since then, my heart has been a hollow drum. The rancher's throat tightened. He'd seen loss before, his wife, his land, his pride. But Nyana's grief felt deeper, ancient. She had always been larger than life, the protector of her people, the sister everyone feared and admired. Now she was just a woman searching for a reason to breathe again. Eli reached out, gently brushing the dirt from her sleeve. You're not alone, he said. Not anymore. They sat by the fire that night, the stars spilling across the endless black. The flames danced between them, flickering over old wounds and unspoken memories. Nyana stared into the fire. I don't belong anywhere, she said quietly. The settlers call me savage. My own people say I've spent too much time among the whites. Eli watched the sparks rise. Maybe it's time you stop belonging to anyone but yourself. Her lips curved into a faint smile, the first he'd seen in years. You still talk like a poet, Eli, she said. And you still pretend you're not one, he replied, his voice warm with an old fondness. For a moment, the weight of grief lifted. The night became gentle again, like it had once been when they were young. But peace never lasted long in the frontier. The next morning, the sheriff arrived with a posse, his words sharp as barbed wire. There's talk you're hiding an Apache woman, he warned. You know what'll happen if we find her here. Eli stood firm, his eyes cold. You'll find nothing here but dust and cattle, he lied. From inside the barn, Nyana held her breath, clutching her bow. When the men left, Eli entered the barn. They'll come back, he said. We have to move before they do. Nyana shook her head. I'm tired of running. If they want me, let them come. Her defiance both scared and amazed him. You'd rather die than hide? He asked. No, she said softly, I'd rather live free, even if it kills me. Rain came that night, cold, relentless. Eli saddled 2 horses under the storm. We leave now, he said. There's a canyon west of here where they'll never find us. She hesitated. Why would you risk your life for me? Eli met her gaze. Because you risked yours for me once. Because maybe, Nyana, I haven't felt alive in 6 months either. Lightning flashed, painting their faces in silver. They rode hard through the storm, the world around them thunder and fire. Behind them, the sheriff's men gathered, torches burning bright against the darkness. The chase had begun. Nyana's braid whipped behind her as she led the way, her voice rising in an old Apache prayer that echoed through the canyon. At dawn, they reached shelter beneath a rock overhang. The storm had passed, leaving the desert washed clean. Eli looked at her, his chest rising with exhaustion and awe. We made it, he said. She nodded, but her eyes were distant. We bought time, she whispered. But time is all we ever seem to buy. Her words were weary, yet her voice carried a strange strength. As they shared the last of the water, Nyana turned to him. Do you ever think love is a kind of rebellion? She asked. Eli's smile was faint but certain. Out here, it's the only kind that's real. Her eyes softened, and for the first time, the wall between them began to crumble. The warmth in his gaze was no longer pity, it was a promise. Then the silence broke. A rifle cracked through the canyon air. A bullet tore into the rock above them, sending shards raining down. Down! Eli shouted, pulling her behind the boulders. From the ridge, the sheriff's voice roared, You can't hide forever, McGraw. Hand her over. Eli gritted his teeth. Over my dead body. Nyana drew her bow, the old warrior's fire returning to her blood. Then let's give them a fight worth remembering, she said. Their eyes met, one final look before the storm of bullets began. And as the desert trembled around them, Eli realized something he hadn't dared to before: he wasn't saving her. They were saving each other. The canyon exploded with gunfire. Bullets struck the stone walls, sending dust into the air like smoke from a dying dream. Eli and Nyana moved in rhythm, side by side, his revolver flashing, her arrows cutting through the storm. The sheriff's men advanced down the slope, shouting curses, but the pair held their ground. For the first time in months, Nyana felt something fierce and alive surge in her chest. It wasn't fear, it was purpose. A shot grazed Eli's arm, and he fell to one knee. Nyana dropped beside him, pressing her hand against the wound. "You can't die here," she said through gritted teeth. "Not after all this." Eli managed a weak grin. "You sound like you care, Apache." Her glare softened. "I do, fool." Then she ripped a strip of fabric from her sleeve, tying it tightly around his arm before turning back to face the ridge. The sheriff's voice echoed through the canyon. "You can't win, McGraw. Hand her over, and I'll let you live." Eli rose shakily, anger lighting his eyes. "I already lived once without her," he shouted. "I won't do it again." His words rang out like thunder, silencing even the wind. Nyana's heart twisted. No one had ever fought for her before, not like this. She looked at him, the man who had once been just a friend, and realized something had changed forever. "Eli," she whispered, "if we die, I want you to know, you were the only place I ever felt safe." He turned to her, eyes burning through the smoke. "Then let's make it out of here alive, so you can feel that again." Together they made their stand. Arrows flew, bullets answered, and the canyon filled with the roar of defiance. But suddenly, the sheriff stumbled forward, clutching his shoulder. A stray arrow had found its mark. His men faltered, panic rippling through the group. The desert fell eerily quiet except for the echo of the wind and the beating of two hearts. When the dust cleared, Eli stepped forward, revolver still raised. "It's over," he said. The sheriff, bleeding and breathless, sneered. "You'll hang for this, McGraw. You and that Apache witch." Eli cocked the hammer. "Maybe. But at least we'll hang as free souls." Nyana's gaze softened. She could see it in him now, the courage of a man who'd stopped running from the truth. But fate had other plans. The sheriff's horse spooked, rearing up and sending him tumbling off the cliff edge. The posse froze in horror. Eli holstered his gun, his voice calm but commanding. "Go home. There's been enough death in this desert." One by one, the men lowered their weapons and rode off, leaving silence behind. When it was over, Nyana knelt beside Eli, touching his face gently. "You saved me," she said. He shook his head. "No, you saved me first." For a long time, they said nothing. The canyon, once filled with gunfire, now held only peace. The sun broke through the clouds, lighting the sand in gold. It felt like the desert itself was exhaling after holding its breath too long. They rode for days, following the river into a valley untouched by war or law. The air smelled of pine and freedom. There, among the whispering cottonwoods, they built a small home of wood and stone. It wasn't much, but it was theirs. And for the first time in years, Eli laughed again, a sound that made Nyana's heart flutter like a startled bird. One evening, as the fire crackled and the sky blazed pink, she stood by the doorway, staring at the horizon. "You think the world will ever forgive us?" she asked. Eli walked up behind her, wrapping his arm around her shoulders. "The world can keep its forgiveness," he said softly. "We have each other." She leaned her head against his chest, feeling his heartbeat steady beneath her ear. 6 months, she murmured. "That's how long it took for me to remember what love feels like." Eli smiled, pressing his forehead to hers. "Then let's make sure we never forget again." The desert wind carried their laughter into the distance, soft and endless. Seasons changed. The ranch grew into a haven for those who had nowhere else to go, settlers, natives, drifters alike. Together, Eli and Nyana built not just a home, but a place where no one asked what you were, only who you were willing to become. The people called it the Valley of Peace. Years later, when strangers passed through, they'd sometimes see them, an aging cowboy and a proud Apache woman tending horses side by side, their laughter echoing against the cliffs. And though the world outside still burned with old grudges, here in their valley, love had rewritten its own law. Because sometimes, love isn't found in a kiss or a promise. Sometimes, it's found in two souls who fought the world, and won.